SXM Town Hall I am so excited about this, and there are a lot of us, the stars of Hollywood, the new Netflix series created by Ryan Murphy and Ian Brennan. It is an epic series. So this is an epic town hall. We have 10 stars from the show. We're going to have a lot of fun here today. I think I speak for everybody here on the panel, all of whom are doing a lot of work around. The most important thing right now is helping ourselves and everybody else, or as many people as we can help get through this weird time. So, if you can support people who are trying to feed kids who are out, not in school right now, or help the frontline workers, go to Direct Relief, go to Save the Children, go to World Central Kitchen. Anything that you can do to help support these organizations would be great. And anyway, having said that, I am so excited, and this is going to be so much fun. This is quite a cast, because it's not every day you get Sheldon from Big Bang and Avita from Avita and Andrew Cunanan and Charlie Sheen's mom all in one Zoom. It's pretty amazing. So let me introduce you all very quickly. You don't have to hold your applause because we can't hear it. First of all, the one and only Patti LuPone. Woo! I mean, come on, my idol.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, Jess.
Who's coming to us, live from her kitchen. She has, and I love that, Patti LuPone, who's got every award in the entire world. Behind her, if you are watching the video, she's got the 2 awards that she decided to display for us is a bowling trophy from Second Stage for spending the most time in the gutter, and then a Jones Beach third prize talent contest from last year.
1959.
Wow, that's
I wanted
amazing.
to have those contests because they were kind of fun.
Also, one of the most beloved, one of the most respected actors on the planet, ladies and gentlemen, Holland Taylor. Woo! Hi, Holland.
Yes.
Yes, she actually has an Emmy behind her, which I'm
Is it still in
very happy to see.
No
the practice.
And the practice. By the way, her this is, oh my gosh, speaking of the practice, besides being a town hall about about this great new series Hollywood, which we'll talk about more in a minute, it's also a little bit of a practice reunion, because also here with us, Dylan McDermott.
Yes.
How are you?
That's
Good to see you again, Dylan.
Yes, good to see you. I feel like I just saw you.
And you did. I recognize that blue wall behind you. The acclaimed actor and director, all-around genius, Joe Mantello.
Oh,
Nice to see you.
Joe, it's good to see you. The Emmy-winning actor, musician, and also executive producer of the show Hollywood that we're about to talk about, Darren Criss.
Hello, hello.
Darren, it's good to see you.
Likewise, Jess.
4-time Emmy winner, TV icon, Jim Parsons.
hello.
Jim,
Nice to be here.
Jim, tell us about your new hair. Just for anybody who's
Well-
watching, they might be curious.
Yeah, quarantine causes changes, and I wanted to shake things up for the husband who only has one companion. Now he's got a sort of 1.5 companions, a little nude thing to jazz it up.
Trying to mix it up. He can
Yeah.
pretend like he's cheating.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
hot. From Spider-Man Homecoming to Black Klansman, always brilliant, the phenomenal Laura Harrier.
Woo.
Hi, Laura.
Hi.
There she is. Beauty.
2-time
Alan.
Tony nominee. Young, already a Broadway legend, Jeremy Pope.
2-time at the same time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same.
That's quite a feat.
2 times
Yeah.
in 1 season.
He
Amazing.
goes all the way. From The Politician, and also we're going to have to talk extensively about this, and I don't know if I'm entirely comfortable with it, but in Hollywood, he really gets it on with Patti LuPone, and that is David Corenswet.
My greatest achievement to date.
Made my mother very uncomfortable. I want you to know that, David.
Hey, it's proven moms love Hollywood.
Moms of Hollywood.
Moms love it.
Listen, she is my idol, and I don't know how comfortable I am with it. I'm happy for both of you, to be honest. However, that was a lot to take in. He plays Rock Hudson, and he is soon to be seen in Top Gun Maverick. So much to talk to him about. Jake Picking. How are you, Jake?
Picking.
There he is.
Did I miss anybody in that little it's a lot of us. I'm so excited to see you all here. Okay, I'm going to set this up a little bit, and then I'm going to talk to each of you about, the character that you play, and so we can really set up the story, give people a feel for what the show is, and people who've already watched it, already binged the entire thing, will love hearing that. It is a 7-episode series. Like I said, it's now on Netflix. Ryan Murphy and Ian Brennan created it. It's set during the late 1940s in Hollywood, and there are several different storylines going on because I said it's pretty epic. Each of these storylines takes on issues of race and gender and sexuality at the same time, monumentally entertaining, really fun, campy, but dramatic. And many of the stories are based on and informed by real events and real people, which is my favorite thing about the show because it's so smart in the way it subtly calls back to these old stories, and it really enhances it if you know the story. So I'm excited to talk to you about all that. All the characters are so beautifully drawn and performed. They're all really interesting. So I'm going to talk to each of you about the character that you play. Now, one of the most talked about storylines is about Rock Hudson, who is played by Jake Picking. Hi, Jake.
Hey, how are you?
Now, so Rock Hudson became a star in the mid 1950s, the Rock Hudson that we know with Magnificent Obsession and these, but you play him when he was younger, when he was new to Hollywood. He was still known as Roy Shear. Tell us what was going on with Rock Hudson at that time and what he was going through.
Yeah, Rock he just moved to LA and was driving a budget packing truck full of frozen peas and carrots, and I guess this is the story of his rise to stardom, and kind of coping with trying to figure out representation. Henry Wilson, Jim Parsons' character, steps in, and he's just grappling with inner turmoil and yeah.
And so the nice thing about what's so great about the show, and people have called it faction because, there are actual things and events, but one of my favorite things about the show is it gives Rock Hudson sort of a different ending. The beginning episodes are very true to what was going on. But then we see a different trajectory for him. You mentioned Jim Parsons' character, Henry Wilson. Jim, I was just blown away when I saw you do this part. He is such a fascinating, complicated guy. And pretty much until the very last couple of episodes, everything is true that we see about him. Tell us about Henry Wilson.
Yeah, Henry came from the Northeast. He came to Hollywood at a time when a lot of people were coming from Broadway and stuff, trying to make their fortune in the new camera world. And he was not a performer, and I don't think he ever thought he was, but he really wanted to be a part of this business and wanted to be part of the glitz and glam. And so that meant he needed to be powerful. So he represented people and tried to make stars. When we meet him, he's well in the thick of what was essentially his kind of beefcake factory he ran, which was taking young men new to Hollywood, like Rock Hudson, and doing what he needed to do to make them fit kind of a mold, change their name. He was famous for that. He gave Rock from Roy. He had Tab Hunter. He had Guy Madison. It was kind of ridiculous, to be honest, but it worked to a certain degree for a long time. He did not end well. He was sleazy, certainly, in a lot of ways. He was also very power hungry, but he was also a very, tortured gay man at that time who, when it wasn't okay to be openly gay in the business, even behind the camera for the most part. And I think that had a lot to do with his ultimate demise. But like Rock, we give him a much better ending than the penniless, destitute death that the real Henry Wilson sadly had.
You are listening to the SiriusXM Town Hall with the stars of Hollywood, the new series by Ryan Murphy and Ian Brennan that is on Netflix right now. And I'm talking to each of the stars about the characters that they play, which are so fascinating. Jeremy Pope, hi, how are you?
Yeah, good. How are you?
Okay, tell me about Archie, who is not directly based on a real character, although there are certainly, you can't help but think of James Baldwin and Langston Hughes when he's on. He's an aspiring screenwriter. Tell us his role in the story of Hollywood and a little bit about him.
Yeah. So, I had the freedom to kind of create my own backstory for Archie. And like you said, it was a lot of James Baldwin, it was a lot of Langston Hughes, Oscar Micheaux, all of these, incredible writers. Archie is an, aspiring screenwriter during the 40s. And I knew that when we were making this character, building him, that he had to be daring and he had to be bold and, confident in who he was, because he was trying to, or is trying to, occupy a space, this business, the entertainment industry, that isn't built for people like him. People
being he was black and gay in the 1940s.
Gay. There's two strikes already, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? So, he has to go about it in a different way. He, there's just certain things that he has to do in order to play the game, because he wants to break the mold. He wants to be the first Black writer that can write a movie that's for everyone, not a movie that is just a race picture, which is run, in the North or just in the South. So that is kind of his mission, is I want to be the first, I want to be the first to be able to write a movie that everyone can relate to. And I hate that I'll be known as a Black writer. I want it to just be, I was a writer. So that is kind of the mission that Archie sets to go on.
So in the show, Archie has written the screenplay about Peg Entwistle. And a lot of people don't know, or some of you know, she was a real person. Peg was a young actress who killed herself by jumping off the Hollywood sign in 1932. So that's the story that Archie wants to bring to the screen. And he hooks up with the director, played by Darren Criss. His name is Raymond. And Darren, tell me about Raymond and what was so interesting about his particular this particular character to you.
Well, I have to give full credit to, and by the way, just to make clear for our listeners, we have Ryan Murphy, Ian Brennan, and Janet Mock, three of our sort of the triumvirate of creator producers there that really kind of added the full spectrum of voices to this. So just as we move forward, I'll give Janet a huge shout out, much deserved. I think Ryan has always been interested in maximizing the sort of prism of colors to add to obstacles in a drama, which is to say that, I never, when we were kind of talking about who this character was, he was really keen on including my half Asian background, which I didn't really particularly push or against or root for. It was really his idea. And seeing how everybody's character in this show has their own sort of specific, unique drama to work against the society 1940s, whether it's gender or queerness or age or there's, all the characters have their own hangups that serve as the sort of antagonist for their own ambition. And the reason why I say that is because I really do have to give Brian credit for wanting to include the fact that I was half Asian and include this very unique, strange construct of what it is to be white passing and what that not only means for people in Hollywood, but for people in any industry that may have some kind of hang up about that. I've never felt that way, but it was an interesting thing that he wanted to include, obviously in the 40s, for someone to have hesitation about maybe embracing that side of them that may have presented a way for them to be seen as other, and maybe have a certain amount of shame. I think Raymond is basically grappling with a part of himself that he's afraid will be shunned by an industry that he wants to be a part of. So that was a really interesting dramatic piece that I cannot take credit for. So that was all Ryan, and I think the show is better for it, for adding a new color to this big canvas.
Darren's character Raymond is also in this because it's the late 40s, and it really raises the stakes for these two characters. He's in an interracial relationship with Camille, who is played by Laura Harrier. Laura, tell us about Camille. And she's not based on a real person, but there are certainly shades of actual actors that probably informed your performance a lot.
Definitely. I mean, Camille is another one of our fictional characters, but I really modeled a lot of her off of Dorothy Dandridge, as well as some of Lena Horne. I mean, they were both the two, first Black actresses to be able to be leading ladies in Hollywood. And unfortunately, Dorothy Dandridge ended up having a very sad life and didn't really achieve the full status that I think she could have and should have in another time, and had she been up against less obstacles. But she was super informative in creating this, and I just kind of drew from her, and then did the research of watching films and listening to podcasts and reading books. But it was really, also shaped by Janet Mock, who Darren mentioned, because she was really somebody I could talk to deeply about the character, and who also knows what it's like to be the first and to go through so much adversity in her life and come out the other side to try and make it in this industry. So she was incredibly helpful.
That is that's one thing that I wanted to ask you specifically about, what kind of input Janet Mock had in helping you shape that character. Did you all talk a lot about Dorothy Dandridge and Lena Horne, or was it did you feel more like you were creating this character out of whole cloth?
I think we both did sort of similar research at the beginning of Dorothy Dandridge and Lena Horne, so we were kind of on the same page in terms of references to them. But it was more so being on set and being able to talk to Janet about the experiences that Camille was going through, and the difficulty of being the first Black woman to test for a screen test at the studio, or to experience the type of racism she was experiencing, or be feeling seen and connected in this interracial relationship, which I think was a really great storyline that we had with Darren. She just was, we have so many great directors, and I've been really fortunate to work with so many amazing directors, but Jana was somebody who could relate from personal experience, I think, to what Camille was going through. So that made all the difference.
The character Avis is married to the studio head, and over the course of the series, she takes a much larger role in everybody's lives and in the development of this movie that Archie has written. And Avis is played by Patti LuPone. Patti, she's formidable. She's great. I found it really interesting that she's very loosely based also on Irene Selznick.
Yes, loosely. In as much as she was, the daughter of Louis B. Mayer and married to David O. Selznick, and was at the beginning of what we know as Hollywood. And I think that's the extent. She certainly, she wasn't in a happy marriage.
Right. Her husband was a philanderer, just like your husband, Rob Reiner, is in the movie, in the show.
And apparently she was the brains behind David O. Selznick.
What about the character when jumped off the page for you?
The costumes.
I mean, they're pretty great.
They're great. We don't get the episodes until we get the episodes, so it's difficult. We got one, and then we shot one. Towards the end of one, we got two, and so we're almost playing catch up, and we are responsible for what we have in front of us. I love the fact that Ryan trusts women and loves women. And I love the fact that he is not afraid to give us things that are outside of what might be considered the norm in society. And I embrace that. I walk the edge. My favorite place is the edge. And he knows that. And so I'll do anything for him in any respect. And he wrote a beautiful character. I get to look great. And then I get to, you know, act, which isn't always the case on television. Women don't necessarily get roles that they have to act because they have to supply a lot of information. You know what I mean? It's like, we're put in boxes a lot of the time, and Ryan does not do that.
What's so interesting is that even among these characters, you know, many of them are struggling and dealing with real discrimination. They are, you know, gender and racial minorities who have, you know, being discarded. But what's so interesting, you know, Avis is this, and the studio executives too, that, you know, Holland and Joe play, they are, you know, these are people of enormous privilege. But we also see, for example, Avis, you know, still really struggling to, you know, work in an industry or be part of an industry that doesn't value them, that puts everybody in a box, that expects everyone to subscribe to certain rules that are completely arbitrary and are beyond unfair.
Yeah.
And watching her struggle is a really interesting part of the show.
That's Ryan and Janet and Ian. So thank you, you guys, and thanks for the compliment. But they wrote a wonderful character. Thank you.
One of the great, for anybody who's at home and looking for really interesting stuff to read, especially if you're watching Hollywood, Irene Selznick's memoir called A Private View is one of the great Hollywood memoirs. It was done like, she wrote it a while ago, but boy, it is, you know,
it's really good.
The daughter of this mogul, the wife of this mogul, and then finding herself at the end of her life. She produced Streetcar Named Desire. You know, she really made a life for herself and her own identity. Dylan McDermott, tell me about, okay, I'm obsessed with this. I'm obsessed with your backstory. Ernie, you play Ernie. He's based on a character named Scotty Bowers, who was a real Hollywood pimp back in the 40s and 50s and 60s.
Yeah, he was a real guy. Did you see the documentary on him?
Oh yeah, it's called, by the way, something else. It's fun. Full Service, his memoir is also great, but the documentary, you can find it. It's on demand. It's called Scotty and the Secret History of Hollywood, and it is so fascinating.
Oh, it's fascinating, and his backstory is fascinating. You know, he was molested, and he was in the service, and he lost his brother in the war, and then, you know, he went out to Hollywood, and like Ernie, he couldn't make it as an actor, and he fell back on prostitution, which happens a lot in Hollywood. So I think that this guy is he's an interesting character, and he said one thing that really, in the documentary, that really informed my character. He said, "I'm up for anything." And
yeah, there's something very. I think you've you know, the real Scotty Bowers, who, you know, just basically ran a brothel out of a gas station.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he took money from the kids that he would send out. So he wasn't, I don't know, there was a little gray area whether he was actually a pimp or not, but he certainly connected all of his young friends in Hollywood for years with, you know, the rich and famous. And
he was exploiting anyone, you know,
yes.
That's what I liked about him. You know, there was something, a great quality about that, you know, that he wasn't exploiting and just taking money. And, you know, he felt like he was friends with these people.
Yeah, and he felt like he was performing a service because at that time, especially, you know, actors and celebrities could not have any kind of normal sex life. I mean, they couldn't go to a gay bar because those were always being raided by the vice squads. And he was supplying people, according to Scotty, people like Katharine Hepburn and Charles Lawton and all of these people with companionship and sex. And sometimes those things would become real relationships.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So Ernie recruits to his gas station. He, just like Scotty, would find these young, good-looking hopefuls and put them to work. And one of those men is Jack, a young aspiring actor played by David Corenswet. Hi, David.
Hi.
So tell us about Jack.
Jack, we sort of are introduced to Hollywood through Jack, who is the newest newcomer to town after getting out of the service and moving there with his wife to try to start a family and become the biggest movie star he can possibly imagine. Ernie's sort of the first guy that he meets who knows anything about Hollywood and how it works. And fortunately or unfortunately, that's Jack's first introduction to town, is Ernie saying, listen, you can have all the dreams in the world, but there's a lot of opportunity here with me at this gas station. And so Jack, who discovers pretty quickly that it's his path to glory is not going to be quite as straightforward as he was hoping it was going to be. He imagined it was going to be, and certainly not as glamorous as he was imagining after seeing all the movies on the silver screen. He is pretty quick to say, all right, well, look, I'll do whatever it takes to take care of my family and move up in the world. So he follows Ernie's lead into this full-service gas station.
And one of his first client, really, and I'm sure favorite client, is Avis, who we talked about a moment ago, played by Patti LuPone. And I just wondered, how well did Patty and David know each other before you had to start doing those scenes?
Well, this is the good story, is that we actually had worked together a bunch before we shot that first sex scene. The first scene where we meet and we have the first rendezvous. The scenes we had shot before where we had gotten to know each other are the scenes in episode 2 where we're past the pleasantries and we're just going at it like rabbits.
Yep.
So that really broke the ice. It kind of shattered the ice.
Patty, were you, I don't know, were you thrilled, excited, nervous? How do you approach those scenes? Because they're over the top.
Thrilled and excited, not nervous at all. And I have to say, David and I had a shorthand. We just met. I found out, what group were you?
45.
Off you. He's group 45, I'm group 1 of Juilliard. That's how much difference there is in our age. And but we had a shorthand because whether we did or we didn't, we had the same training. So, there was a compatriot there. There was somebody that went through the Juilliard acting division.
Interesting.
So, bing, that, a level was taken away, and we bonded in that. And then, I've said this before, it's work, number one, to have a sex scene. It isn't having a sex scene, it's work. And it's fun, it's exciting, it's lovely. I have to shout out Dylan McDermott because I had a one with him too that was cut. But I think that if you have responsible actors, then there's no threat and there's no invasion. There is just doing the work. And I worked with 2 very responsible actors, for which I am very grateful.
Jim, a moment ago, who did you call a pervert?
Your questions
Oh,
are
you're
getting
gross.
really.
Shut up.
Gracious.
It's none of your goddamn business what it felt like for them to simulate sex, Jess. I'm kidding.
I want the name of the person who cut the sex scene between Patti LuPone and Dylan McDermott.
Me too.
Furious about that.
They are working on, like Tiger King did the additional episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
We're talking about that in Hollywood.
Right, every angle of Dylan's in my sex scene.
Good. The 8th episode of Hollywood. Holland Taylor, you play Ellen Kincaid, who is head of the studio casting. We find out in the, she's a fictional character, but, she's really good at her job. She discovered Lana Turner and Judy Garland, and she has to instruct all of the new actors in how to speak like in a sort of that mid-Atlantic half British accent. Now, who does she represent? Because there is an entire, group of women at that time and beyond, and I found this character really interesting for what she represents.
Well, I don't think Ryan and Janet and Ian did not have a specific person in mind, but they did have a kind of person. They wanted her to be on the side of the angels. They wanted her to be well-bred and smart and be a real valuable voice behind the scenes of that studio. And they also, in the word that Ryan gave me, wanted her to have moxie. And right away that rang a bell for me, because I do, after 50 years of lore that I have absorbed through osmosis about Hollywood, I know there were women like this. I know there were a handful of really powerful, valuable women behind the scenes, and sometimes not so far behind, like Joyce Selznick, as Patty said. But interestingly enough, I got a letter yesterday from a guy, just read part of it, named Paul Brownstein, who's a producer. He says, you channeled the essence of Lillian Burns Sidney, L.B. Mayer's director of talent at MGM. Her interaction with him was, I'm told by Debbie Reynolds, much like the way you handled Rob Reiner's character. I'm sure you know that Lillian was the studio's drama coach, as well as directing screen tests and Mr. Mayer's muse. She was the most creative woman in Hollywood and highly paid, but could not be an executive because of her gender. She was my adopted grandma. I was blessed to be guided by her through many dinners and late night phone calls for the last 2 decades of her life. Lillian told me I have a Thalberg nose for talent, a compliment I take with gratitude. So it's interesting. I'm going to actually read up now on that woman. But I had a very clear sense of her, and I think she fills some ideal of the kind of person I would like to have as a friend. I mean, just a person who's really a substantial person with wit, humor, and generosity. And so it was a joy to play her, and in every way.
Yeah, and that wit and humor that never, that is really sort of a sign of courage and a sign of fortitude, because she's a progressive in this really reactionary place, this industry trying to feed these, white Protestant images that are total fiction to the public. And she wants to do the right thing as much and fights in her own way within the system.
Well, I allowed the word moxie to carry me a long way.
Yeah. Joe Mantello. I mean, Dick Sam, first of all, if you haven't seen it all, I'm not going to give it away, but there are these scenes between Holland Taylor and Joe Mantello. And if you're somebody who, grew up on the New York theater, and to see the two of you do these characters and their incredibly complicated and moving relationship, it's a thrill. But Joe, you play Dick Samuels, who's a studio executive. Tell us about him.
Well, he's the head of production. For the first few weeks, Jim, will you please verify this? I couldn't remember my character's name.
No, he called him Dick Solomon every time we talked about
Solomon.
He'd tell him, I'm playing Dick Solomon. We're like, no, Samuels, Joe.
And we lived in the same building where we were shooting this, and we would meet almost every night, right, Jim? And we would have tequila, and we would just.
I drank every night. Many of them you were there.
And I would talk about Dick Solomon, and he would say, your name is Dick Samuels. And so probably by episode 3, I got it. But he's head of production at the studio. He is really concerned about the quality of films they're making, has a bottom line mentality. One of the things I'm looking at all of my colleagues' faces here on this screen. It's so beautiful. And the thing that's really amazing to me is that I feel like only Ryan Murphy would put this group of actors together into a mix. And that's sort of what I keep hearing from people who have watched it, and they talk about the fun of it. Yes, it has a message. Yes, there's real depth there, but the people that are watching it are really compelled to watch it because it's so much fun. I mean, are you guys hearing the same sort of thing? It's like,
yes.
It's this kind of thing. And you look at this interesting group of actors and you think the man is a genius.
Joe, I think the full spectrum is what makes it fun. There's not only something for everyone, but everyone together makes its own flavor
Yeah.
that has obviously taken off like crazy.
I gotta give, there was a early on when we were starting this, there wasn't really a cast, and I was just asking Ryan who he was thinking for various people, and after working with Ryan for however long, it never occurred to me, this one thing he said to me, and I'll misquote him, but you'll get the idea. He was just saying, he was like, Darren, there is a unique architecture to putting these things together. And I won't give the categories, they're all very flattering, but it was like he was putting together a chessboard of like, you have to have this, you can't have this person without this person. And he had these sort of like, it was like putting a heist together. You know, he had like the inside man and the something girl and the thing, and he plotted it out with sort of like tactical precision. And I was just like, oh, I just meant, who do you think would be fun for this? And he was like, no, this is a very specific balancing act. And when he said that, I was like, this is why you are a master curator.
Yeah.
And it blew my mind. And what he put together is exactly what Joe was saying. It is a very unique sort of Tetris that I don't think a lot of other people would consider.
But Darren, the image of putting together a heist is really a great one. That really,
yeah.
alchemy.
You immediately get it. We all pulled it off. We all pulled this thing off, guys.
What did Jeremy, when Ryan came to you and said, you know, I want you to play the role, you know, it's Ryan Murphy, so it's not like he has to, you know, in most cases, it's not like he has to convince someone to come work with him. But what did he say to you about Archie that got you excited or made you want to do the role?
I mean, I think really what it was, you know, kind of Patty said it, we were getting the episodes as we were doing them. So there's this, you have to trust the man. And I didn't know Ryan. I mean, I know of his work, but I didn't have a personal relationship before working on Hollywood. So once I finally got in the room with him and he told me about this revisionist history idea and who Archie was and giving him a voice, I thought it was beautiful. I immediately asked him, is there going to be people that look like me that represent that voice behind the scenes? And I was so grateful that I was going to be working side by side with someone like Janet Mock, who was so involved. She was in the writer's room. She was a producer. She directed two of the most like ambitious episodes of our show this first season. So that made it not just a yes, but a hell yes. You know, I think then when I got 1 and 2 and saw what he was saying, what Archie was going to be able to do, you know, throughout the season, I again trusted him, but it just made it more thrilling. And then finally, you know, hearing about the cast, I was going to be working with Patty and Joe and Laura and Jake and all these, Darren, all these, I mean, everyone on the screen, it's a dream, you know, like it's such a well-versed group of people that just beautiful hearts and beautiful souls. So that is kind of the actor's dream, is to be able to play against, you know, those type of people.
One of the there are a lot of, you know, from George Cukor to Billy Haynes, there are all of these real people who kind of float in and out of the series, and that's another thing that makes it so fun, because these references are sort of tossed off and they're so rich. But Queen Latifah plays Hattie McDaniel, who of course was, you know, Mammy in Gone with the Wind, and she was the first person of color to win an Oscar within her own community. She was accused of, you know, stereotyping. In the mainstream community of Hollywood, she was treated terribly. Laura, one of the great things is Camille is sort of taken under Hattie McDaniel's wing at one point. And I just wondered what it was like as an actress for you to be sitting there, and obviously you're acting and you're with Queen Latifah, but you're also, in a sense, getting to sit down with Hattie McDaniel and hear about her experience and get some of her wisdom. And that must have been incredibly thrilling.
It was crazy, honestly. It was really amazing. I mean, when I found out that Queen Latifah was going to be playing Hattie McDaniels, I was just like ecstatic and so excited. I think she's just the coolest. And like Camille with Hattie is somebody that I grew up watching basically my whole life. So, you know, it kind of made it that much easier to be able to connect with the story that she was telling as Hattie McDaniel, because, you know, Camille would have been feeling a lot of the same things and the same emotions towards her. Hattie was someone that I had heard of, and I knew the generalization of her story, but I wasn't completely familiar with the details. And it's just so heartbreaking what this woman went through, and what a kind of waste of her talent it was, because after Gone with the Wind, she really wasn't able to do anything else, and she was so ostracized by Black people and white people in Hollywood. So I just kind of, grounded with that, and then having someone like Queen Latifah tell that story, it just made it all the more powerful.
You are listening to the SiriusXM Town Hall with the stars of Hollywood, the new series on Netflix that is so great. And the stars are Holland Taylor, Darren Criss, Patti LuPone, Jeremy Pope, David Corenswet, Joe Mantello, Jake Picking, Dylan McDermott, Laura Harrier, Jim Parsons. It's a very crowded Zoom. I'm just saying, and you're all doing great. I'm sorry that I made you wait so long to talk about Dick Samuels, Joe. You had to sit there for a very long time.
Oh, that's okay.
And I apologize.
Solomon, Dick Solomon, Jess.
Dick Solomon.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I just need to shout out somebody that I just remembered now that we haven't mentioned at all, which was a guy by the name of Michael Arnold, who is the intimacy coordinator to the stars. He famously put together that crazy scene in Wolf of Wall Street and has been sort of the sex choreographer guy for these big productions ever since. And even though, yes, there is a shorthand between our esteemed Juilliard compatriots, this guy, with a number of us, choreographed and made a very safe place for these very intimate scenes, a lot of which were hit the cutting room floor. But on the day shooting it, I thought it was one of the most like woke experiences I've ever had, as far as doing something that has been basically the wild, wild west for however many decades, where people they just throw you and there's nobody to kind of mitigate. So shout out to Michael Arnold for being there for us for a lot of these very, tricky scenes. And I think there was a beauty to them and precision that, I'd be remiss not to give him due credit.
Yes, and I'd also like to remind the listeners, when you talk about Hollywood, you really can't help but talk about the very serious issues and things that it takes on in a really fun way. But the show is, it's got a lot of soap. It's got a lot of sex. It's really, really entertaining. It's got a lot of camp. It's really fun. And I think the audience is very excited. Let me grab these questions, and I'm first going to call on Jeff Conway from Chicago.
Hi, guys.
Hi, Jeff.
Hello, Jeff.
Hello, everybody. Hi from Chicago.
Hi.
I just had a little Malnati pizza.
Ooh, that's the best. You did the best
It's
one.
the best, man.
Wait,
That's the
you
only
know
one.
about Lou Malnati Pizza?
You bet I do.
Everybody
it,
knows
Patty.
about Illuminati pizza, man.
I just ordered them, and they just showed up. Two cheese and 2 pepperoni frozen.
That's what I do when I feel homesick, Patty.
No, great. I only recently discovered you can order them frozen, and they're just as good as they are in the restaurant.
Yeah.
Lou Malnati, get it.
Yes.
Jeff, what's your question?
Well, thank you, Jess, and thank you, SiriusXM. I gotta tell you guys, I watched the show in less than 24 hours, and it truly is my all-time new favorite show. It just struck a chord with me so well, and for so many of us that haven't had a fair voice throughout our lives. So thank you.
Oh.
So my question for you guys is, after now portraying these 1940s Hollywood characters that faced hardships and discrimination and overcame them successfully, what advice or words of encouragement would you give to young people out there that are still struggling with similar conflicts more than 70 years later, today in 2020?
Let me just so anybody can jump in and answer. Let me throw that first to Jeremy, because you're young, but you've had tremendous amount of success. What kind of would you answer that question?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I've been so fortunate to, like you said, work in these amazing rooms and amazing projects, but like you said, I'm young and I'm growing and I'm evolving. But one thing I've learned is to stand in all that I am, to know and to remind myself that I am enough. Coming into this business, I often wondered if I was enough. Am I good enough? How high can I dream? And you can dream as high as you want. I think it's a reminder there's a speech that Archie gives, just like, know that your story is just as important. Know that you matter, like you have value. And I think it's about holding on to that. I think it's about finding a community of people. I think in our story, Archie finds that in Rock. But find people that are going to celebrate you and going to root for you and cheer you on alongside as you go out and you raise your voice and try to make a difference, and you will make a difference. I think we are the generation of artists and activists that are doing that. Yes, we are set in the 40s. Yes, it's a fantasy, but a lot of these conversations we are still having in 2020. So, but I think it's about us, banding together and continuing to fight, because we will reach those heights. Those mountains seem very high, but we will see it and we will get to the top of it. So, if anything, it's about standing in your truth, owning all that you are, and finding your people that will celebrate that and embrace that.
Yes, Jeremy.
Thanks, Jeremy. Let's go to Sally Levy from Chandler, Arizona.
Hi.
Hi, Salia. What's your question?
My question is, okay, so episode 3 deals with an illustrious dinner party. If you guys could have a conversation and have dinner with anybody in this era, who would it be and why?
Oh my gosh. Holland. I'll throw that one to you.
God, someone who wants to answer that.
Yeah, you can always pass. Patty.
This cast.
They're from that era.
We have not been able to celebrate the premiere of Hollywood, or once an event like this is over with, people scatter sooner rather than later. Some actors are wrapped sooner than other actors, and we haven't had a moment to say goodbye and say congratulations and to say fare thee well. We have not been able to hug each other. So I would have dinner. I would have a big dinner. I would pay for dinner.
Okay.
How can you cook the dinner, Patty?
I cook it.
I have an answer for that. Just to answer your question, because I forgot when we were rewatching. I forget that you see him for a second, and you see Cole Porter for just a second, and it's a fun little Easter egg of a gag. Even though he was very much part of that time and that world. As a songwriter and just a big music file in general, I would love to have dinner with Cole Porter. That would be that would be incredible. So that's my answer.
I fell in love with Patti LuPone watching Anything Goes. New to New York, went to the theater. It was astounding.
Jack. Oh, wasn't that a fun production?
Oh my gosh.
Oh my God.
One of the greats.
You saw those jokes coming a mile away and you still laughed.
Loved it. Ava Muffaletto from Kings Park, New York.
Hi, guys.
Hi, Ava.
I just want to say that I love this show so much, and I've been in love with Darren since 7th grade. Absolutely in love. Oh
my God.
Wow. I'm assuming that was a very, very, very long time ago.
Yeah, it was a bunch of years ago. Don't worry.
I'm kidding. No.
My question is, what was it like to work with Ryan Murphy again, especially for Darren and David, since you guys have a pretty long history of working with him? And I was wondering how that process changes each time you work on a new process.
David?
Oh, well, my history with Ryan isn't that long, but most of my work in The Politician was in the episode that he directed, so I did get to work with him as a director for a while. And I think the thing that changes is you just sort of relax. I think Ryan can be kind of intimidating at the beginning because he really knows what he's doing, and he's been doing it for a lot of years, and he really knows what he wants. And he's also a very busy man, so he can sort of feel unapproachable at the beginning. But I was really happy to discover quite quickly that at least I found him to be extremely approachable and surprisingly open, considering how specific he is with his vision and what story he wants to tell. I think my favorite moment was, this may not have happened until Hollywood, so maybe it takes a little while to break into this level with him, but the first day that he showed up on set and sort of talked us through how we were going to shoot the scene, and I sort of showed him the sides, the lines, and I said, when are we going to say all this stuff that we have to, that's in the script? And he said, oh, never read the script. So that's, you sort of think that it's all, I don't know, Ryan's got a great eye for sort of the essence of a scene, the turn, the moment that really has to be present for the audience and elevated. stand out. And then around that, this is what Patty was saying earlier, you know, he really trusts actors. And so beyond that, he loves to see what actors bring and how they play with each other. So that's the sort of fun realization I had, is that he really is quite, he likes to have fun, and he likes to watch the people that he's brought together have fun in creating what we're doing.
Darren, I know you have an answer to that as well, but I also want to ask Dylan, because Dylan, I mean, in American Horror Story, you've done some terrible things.
Terrible things.
Terrible acting.
Not terrible acting. You said that.
Unbelievable. Yeah, I mean, Ryan and I go back 10 years. He actually directed me in a scene where I had to cry and masturbate at the same time. So that really broke the ice. I'm forever known as the tearjerker.
Oh my gosh.
Not possible.
I know that. I love you so much, Phil.
Oh man, that's great.
Darren, what about you? How is each project the same and each different?
Yeah, I mean, gosh, I get so
And when are you going to cry and masturbate at the same time?
That's just every Tuesday, man.
I was about to say, what do you think he's doing right now? Sorry.
Yeah, what do you think? I gotta get to that. I'm realizing, strangely, I guess I have been with Ryan the oddly the longest, I guess, out of this crew.
I think so.
Yeah, that's strange. Well, everybody here has, a very intimate, differing relationship with Ryan, so maybe they can attest to things differently. But, every director and producer has their own style. There's no one size fit all. And I think one of the main through lines with Ryan is he does know what he wants. And back to sort of my heist analogy, he puts the crew together so he can let them do the thing. And I think as an actor, you really appreciate that, because he's there if you have questions, but he's not there to micromanage. I think he entrusts people to a huge degree, and without trying to service our own brilliance or lack thereof, I do appreciate it when Ryan just kind of lets you kind of run wild. But it's nice to know that if you have questions, he can be there. But I think he focuses on, and he's been doing this his whole career, and it's something that I've always been in awe of him for. Some directors are more actor to actor. He's definitely more moment to moment. He's chasing the sort of primary colors of scenes. If you think of his work like a Mondrian painting, you have your blue, your red, and your yellows. As an actor, I'm focusing on the lines and the dots and the placement. He's looking at the big piece of red, the big piece of blue, and then he leaves it to us to kind of connect them all together. And that's been something that's been pretty constant throughout his work. And those colors are things that are sexy and fun and funny and glamorous. And I think it's something to always look forward to when you work with him. And that's his sort of like his special touch.
We have time for just one more question, and I want to thank the audience so much for who's joining us live on Zoom, and I'm so sorry to people that we didn't get to. But the last question is, I like this question. It's coming from Michaela Whitlow.
Hi.
Hi, Michaela.
Hi, Michaela.
Hi. Okay, I just wanted to say I love the show so much, and I'm making all my friends watch it. So, and
Thank
also, Darren, I've been trying to meet you for years, so this is good enough.
I'm here.
Oh my
I'm here,
Yes.
and I brought my whole posse.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Everybody's so thirsty for Darren today.
I'm not trying to be.
I pay a lot of
include
money to
myself.
these people, Jess.
Nothing.
These guys are on salary. Thank you, Michaela, for showing up.
Thanks, Michaela. What's your question?
Okay, so I'm an aspiring actress. Aspiring, not inspiring. And
Well, could be
You don't know
both.
that. Could be both. Exactly.
and I'm going into my second year of college actually as a theater major. So I was just wondering if any of y'all had any advice.
Well, I mean, okay, first, I'm going to throw that to, I wish I could throw it to everybody, but Joe Mantello, you're a director and an actor. So I feel like you might have an interesting take on this.
Yeah, Dick Solomon, what do you say?
King Solomon.
What is my advice? I mean, it's sort of what Jeremy said, is just understand who you are, own who you are. when you walk into an audition, know that it's your time as much as the auditioner's time. Don't try to figure out a way to get the job. I don't know. There's other actors here. What do you guys do?
I have something to say about an audition. Exactly what you were just saying. You can't actually get a job. You can be given a job. All you are in charge of is your manner and your standing in yourself, as Jeremy would say, and just be there and responsive to the moment. Be prepared, know the material well, and just be in your response to it. And then it's up to them to give you the job. People say, I'm going to go get that job. No, you're not. That's a verb. You can't do that. It's like a race. You can't win a race. To win a race is a description of what happened. All you can do is run a race, and then maybe you'll win it, but not because you push the others aside and beat them. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, Patty.
I also think that Michaela, you have to know your craft. You have to study. You have to know the history of the theater. You have to know the history of the film, because there is so much talent out there. There is an enormous amount of talent, and you will be competing with them. So you have got to be several steps ahead of them. You can't just rely on your looks or your personality or what you think you know. You have to know.
So much more competition today, Patty.
It's
Can you imagine?
every time I go to the theater, I am blown away by the talent on the stage. And every year it gets more and more intense. Every year that graduating class.
And Michaela's a student right now too. This is the time. You can learn everything, you can see everything. Once you're out in the real world, you don't have the same access to the same, student discounts and all, and other people who can fail around you. Like be a student would be my advice. Enjoy being a student, because this is where it's being fostered. It's harder to be a student out there in the real world, because then you have to catch up. This is the time to do all these things that everybody just told you. Enjoy this next 2 years of being a theater student.
Great advice.
And there's a lot of talent in this Zoom. And there's a lot of talent in Hollywood, the new series on Netflix that is so fun and so great. I want to thank our audience for joining us. And just one last round of applause for the cast: Holland Taylor, Darren Criss, Patty LuPone, Jeremy Pope, David Cornsweet, Joe Mantello, Jake Picking, Dylan McDermott, Laura Harrier, and last but not least, Jim Parsons. I'm so grateful that you all joined us here today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
So,
Go
Good to
watch
see everybody.
Hollywood. Stay well. Stay safe. Bye, everyone.